My job today is to teach you about staying calm. Now, Jo went on her happiness journey. For me to be able to be happy, and I'm going to keep touching my microphone as well now, aren't I? Sorry, Ian. For me to be happy, I needed to eliminate the stress and the anxiety. I was a teacher, which I loved, I really loved, but after 3 months in an inner city school in Bradford, I woke up one morning and could not stop crying. And my entire life, I've been the person that you see in front of you. And even for those 3 months of teaching, you would still have thought that I was happy and sparkly and full of life. But inside, there was this little monster that was just slowly eating away at me, and I just physically couldn't get out of bed 3 days before the Christmas holidays. And I found myself, age 22, sitting in the doctor's office, being handed a prescription for antidepressants, thinking, do I need to take a tablet every day to be able to do the job that I've wanted to do since I was like 5-6 years old? And I decided that I couldn't take a tablet every day for the rest of my life, because that's just not who I am. So I managed to find different strategies and things to pull myself out of it, and after 6 months I came off the antidepressants. And then when I was 32, I think, about 10 years ago.
I thought you were 28 now.
I am 28 now. About 10 years ago, when I was 18, I was diagnosed with a brain tumour, which, yeah, if you want to see pictures of what I looked like at that point and be able to see how it changed my physical appearance and my mental well-being, then we can have a chat about that at lunchtime or something. But basically, I had a brain tumour that was causing me to produce too much growth hormone, so I physically changed a lot. I went up 4 shoe sizes, 6 ring sizes, 3 dress sizes. We affectionately refer to it in our house as Kate the Princess Fiona years, which will only make sense if you've seen Shrek. But it was kind of like that time when the sun goes down for Princess Fiona for sort of 3 or 4 years in my life. And then luckily the sun came back up. And I was very, very lucky that the world's leading surgeon for that type of surgery just happened to be based at Birmingham, which was the nearest hospital for me. But as well as producing too much growth hormone, I also produce too much cortisol, which is why I need to show you this picture. Nobody else is using any pictures, but I'm a teacher, so I like visual aids. When we get stressed and anxious, it isn't just an emotion. It's a physical response to things. And I think it's really important that we understand that it's a physical process, because it's very easy to think that it's all going on in your head and that that's where the problem is, where in actual fact it can be triggered from all sorts of places. And for me, the fascinating thing was that it was a little tiny pea-sized tumour inside my head that suddenly made me get very short-tempered and have no patience and say things that I wouldn't normally have said. And so having gone through that, I was a bit fascinated by, I'm not a scientist by any stretch, and I apologise if there's any science experts in the room, because I'm going to do my best to explain it for you now. Basically, when we get stressed, there are some mechanisms that go up into our brain. I'm not quite sure whether it's nerves or what, but there's messages that are received by your brain, and they're received by this little tiny gland, the amygdala. And it responds to things like changes in your heart rate, changes in your breathing, anything that can send a little signal to your brain just to give it some sort of feedback about what's going on in your body. Well, of course, when we get stressed and when we're anxious, the first things that happen are that our heart rate changes, doesn't it? So suddenly our heart beats quicker and our breathing gets really shallow. When we're really scared, our breathing You know, you see people panicking, don't you, when they're really, really scared and their breathing goes. And that's all received by this little tiny gland. And that then sends messages all around your body, telling your blood to go to your legs, your arms, so that you can fight, so that you can run away. It gives you massive surges of adrenaline and cortisol. Well, adrenaline's great if you want to run a marathon, or if you want to, you know, fight somebody. Why you would want to fight somebody, I'm not quite sure. But if you want to physically respond to something, adrenaline's great in short bursts. Cortisol is the thing that was making me angry. So, because I was producing too much cortisol for no reason, I was getting short-tempered. My daughter was a toddler, so as you can imagine, it was not ideal timing. She'd spill a drink, and in addition to the fact that I'd got this ridiculously short temper, I was also in a lot of pain physically because of the swelling in my hands and, you know, my joints and things. So she'd spill a drink, and my first reaction was to just go ballistic, because I'd not only got to deal with the fact that she'd spilt the drink, I'd got to get down and I'd got to hurt my hands by trying to sort it out and clean it up, and my knees hurt because I was kneeling down, and it was just all compounded. So having the cortisol is fine if you want to be angry to save yourself. It's not fine when you're dealing with a toddler. If I was being attacked in the street and needed to fight back, then it'd be a really useful response to have. If somebody was attacking somebody else in the street, it'd be a useful response to have. But our really basic responses, those fight, flight and freeze responses, don't serve us very well in modern life. When I talk about this in schools, there's always some clever 11-year-old who goes, well, if they're not good responses now, then why don't we just have that amygdala thing removed, and then like we don't have to worry about stress and stuff anymore, do we? The problem is, if we don't have those responses ever, what happens when we're out with our children and they run into the street in front of a car and we've got to react really quickly and be strong enough to pull them back? You know, we hear stories about mums who lift cars off their children and that sort of thing. That's the level of strength that you get. We have a solid mahogany dressing table in our bedroom that somehow Ian and I managed to carry up the stairs into the bedroom by ourselves. I cannot now lift one end of it to be able to move it to vac round it because it's so heavy, and yet when I was ill I managed to carry it all the way from outside and up the stairs. So it gives you that strength, which is brilliant. And it's fantastic if you just need to deal with something that's happening there and then. So if you're running a marathon, if you're in a boxing match, if you've got a dangerous situation, you're being attacked, whatever it is, we still need to have that response. The problem is, if we have that response over a prolonged time, because it's caused by ongoing stress rather than those short incidents, these chemicals actually do quite a lot of damage to our bodies. And one of the things that I have to be really careful about, because I have this slight imbalance, is that it attacks your heart. That's one of the first things it attacks, which is why when people get very, very stressed over prolonged periods of time, at work or with family situations, whatever it is, their risk of heart problems increases massively, because those stress hormones physically attack your heart. Okay? Now, we've all got situations in our lives that cause stress, haven't we? You know, however short or long they are. We all have them. But we need to learn to deal with them. And the same way that Jo learned all her techniques to help herself, I got into mindfulness and Reiki and all sorts of other things to help myself. Because like Jo, I didn't want to be that mum who was shouting at a 2-year-old for spilling a drink. That's not the sort of mum that I wanted to be. It's not the sort of mum that I was. It was just this chemical experiment going on in my body, making me do things that I didn't want to do. So I started looking into ways to help myself. I'm going to get rid of that now and go back to my notes. Now, I have always believed, until I started doing all this learning, that I just was a worrier. That's what we're called in our family. We're just a family of worriers. My dad's a worrier, my grandma was a worrier, her mum was a worrier. That's the label that we gave ourselves. And until fairly recently, even science and the medical profession kind of believed that if you were formed in a particular way, that was who you were, and there was not a lot you could do about it. So if you were brought up by an abusive parent, if you were brought up by somebody who was very anxious, and you learned that behaviour, that was who you were, and you were stuck with it, basically. And then we learned about a magical thing called neuroplasticity, which is just the most incredible thing. Basically, what it means is you can be whoever you want to be. You just have to practice it enough, which is just incredible. Like, who doesn't want to change those little bad habits that they've got? And if you can do that just by making yourself respond in a slightly different way over and over again until that becomes your natural reaction, why would we not want to do that? God, I'm so not used to a room full of people sitting and listening to me so quietly for so long. Can you just like fidget or clean your shoes with your fingers or something? That'd be great.
So is that like reframing that kind of thing and changing your, because it sounds like it's a habit that's ingrained that we worry about these things, I think.
Yeah, and we're taught how to do it, aren't we? I mean, my dad is the biggest sweetheart you could ever wish to meet. But he was brought up by a worrier, so he was a worrier. He is a worrier. And when, as a small child, you go and stay at another house, and one of the first things your dad does when you get into bed on a night is show you what your escape route is if there's a fire, that kind of sets in place a pattern of thinking that's quite difficult to shift then. I mean, it was all done with the most pure of intentions because he wanted to make sure that if there was an emergency, my sister and I would be okay. But the thought of having to climb along a windowsill and throw my duvet and all my soft toys out onto the patio was not very appealing, I'll be honest. I'm not sure I would have achieved it. But we all have those things that we teach to our kids. And I know that, you know, as a teacher now, before you can do anything in a classroom, you have to do a risk assessment. You know, you're not allowed to stand on a chair to put a display up. So my entire life, I've spent looking around a room going, well, they better not sit on that chair because that's got a slightly loose leg, or what if somebody walks across the room with that pair of scissors, and I have to stop myself from constantly policing my kids and let them, you know, climb the tree or, you know, go down the fireman's pole when they're 2 and just sort of hope that they survive, because you've got to do it sometimes, haven't you? They've got to be in dangerous situations. But we all have that initial response to find the danger. It's how we've survived. If we didn't spot the danger, you know, we'd have been one of the ones that was extinct and not passing on our genes, wouldn't we? You know, because it's important to spot danger, but we've just got to make sure that we don't focus just on that. So we've got the ability to change things, but we need some tools to be able to do it, don't we? Now, the first thing that changes in most people when they start to get stressed and anxious is their breathing. Now, most people are totally unaware that they are breathing most of the time. And if I ask you all to put your hands on your stomachs and take a big breath in, nice big breath in. Come on, I should be able to hear you. Put some effort in. Big breath in, and then breathe out. When you breathe in, does your stomach go in or out? Out. You see, that's because you're all really good. If I do that in a school, I get like 30 or 60 or however many kids, and their little shoulders go up and their chests go out and their stomachs go in. But the most important thing that we can do to help us stay calm is to learn to breathe properly. So when you breathe in, your stomach should go out. So if it didn't, and you're just embarrassed to admit that you were the one person who didn't, just practice it until it does. It's very easy. You can't control consciously, or most people can't, how quickly your heart beats, but you can control your breathing. So as soon as you start to feel anxious or worried or stressed about something, the quickest thing that you could do to change that feeling is to change your breathing. And there's lots and lots and lots of different techniques to control your breathing. My favourite one, because you can just do it anywhere, is something called 7-11 breathing, which is basically where you breathe in and count to 7, and then you count to 11 as you breathe out. It's as simple as that. And it's fantastic because you can do it anywhere. Nobody knows that you're doing it. It's not like all these where you've got to like stick your fingers on your nose and, you know, do big sniffs and then a long hissing sound and all that sort of thing. You can just do 7-11 breathing anyway. You can do it in the middle of an exam. You can do it in the middle of an interview. Nobody will ever know that you're doing it. So just using that breathing technique, and you only need to do it 3 times. For that message that goes up into your brain to be saying, oh, it's all right now. Whatever it was that we were worried about, it's obviously gone because their breathing's gone back to normal. So they stop sending all those messages around the body, and all those chemicals stop being produced. So as soon as you realise that you're starting to feel anxious or stressed, as soon as you get that feeling in your stomach or you start to feel your heart racing, just doing that breathing. I've just touched the microphone again, Joe. I'm going to be in more trouble than you are. So that's the first thing you can do. Does anybody spend a lot of time sitting at a desk or at a computer or anything where they're kind of in that position a lot with their head and shoulders over? Right, stand up. This is a really, really simple technique, and it's brilliant because it controls your breathing and it stretches all the muscles in your neck and your shoulders as well. It's fantastic for that texting generation that permanently have their head at that angle. All you need to do basically is as you breathe in, you're going to bring your arms up and put your head up and just bend your back ever so slightly backwards. If you've got back problems, do it within what's comfortable. Don't make yourself fall over or anything. And then as you breathe out, you bring your arms into your chest and curl your head right over, just so that you've got that slight curve on your spine. Okay, so you breathe in and out. And in and out. And in and out. Okay, you can sit down again now. Thank you for being so obedient. And that's great because it exercises all the muscles in your shoulder and stretches them out as well. And of course, the first place that we start to feel tension usually when we're feeling stressed is in your shoulders. So it releases all that and calms your breathing down at the same time. So if you're feeling worried about anything, it's just a really great go-to. Now, Jo talked a little bit about her morning routine. And the thing that I want to talk to you about is how having a routine can really, really make a difference to your day. Jo said that she got up and she meditated and she did all her magic things on a morning. I'm going to put my hands up. My routine for staying calm happens at bedtime, because I've never quite recovered from the fact that my son used to think that 4:30 was time to get up, and he still thinks 6:30 is, and I'm not waking up any earlier than that. So I do all my things at bedtime. But my morning routine is still really important. And it might not be meditating and affirmations and things. All that happens when I go to bed, because the kids are already in bed by then. On a morning, I still do things in a certain order. So I get in the shower, I get out, put my makeup on, dry my hair, get dressed, go downstairs, do the dishwasher, make the kids pack lunches, do breakfast, and it all happens in the same order every day. And if it gets interrupted, there's a really good chance that something will be forgotten. You know, I'll forget to take my iron supplement, or forget to put something in a lunchbox, because it just happens so automatically because I've done it for so long. And it might not be something that's obviously very calming. But actually, when we talk about being more mindful and more calm about things, it doesn't have to be sitting and meditating. It can be doing the washing up, it can be doing the ironing. And that part of my day is a time when there's not usually anybody else around. The kids are upstairs getting ready. Well, my son is. My daughter's in bed seeing if she can leave it another 5 minutes and still get ready for school on time. And I'm just in the kitchen by myself, in my own little world, concentrating on what I'm doing. I'm not thinking about what I need to do at work that day. I'm not thinking about what I need to get from the shops. I'm just thinking about where that pot needs to go from the dishwasher, what I'm going to put into the kids' sandwiches, and what we're having for breakfast. And just by concentrating on what I'm doing, that in itself is being mindful, and it's very calming. I'm not worrying about the fact that I forgot to ring my mum last night, or have I remembered to fill in the form that needs to go back to school, or did we do the reading last night that we should have done? I'm just thinking about what I'm doing. And being present and being in the now is one of the things that's just completely life-changing. I'll give you a perfect example. 10 years ago, if somebody had said that I'd got to come and do something like this, or I'd got to go and talk to a room full of head teachers, or I'd got to go and stand in front of a medical conference, which I did, which is quite scary, I would have spent at least 3 days worrying about it. I would have got progressively less sleep as the nights had gone on, and I would have been flustered and going over and over and over what I'd got to say. I'm fairly certain I'm not going to cover a fraction of what's on my list for today, because I'm so in the now these days that I've just turned up this morning, and even while Jo was doing her bit, I was just thinking, this is good. I wasn't thinking, oh God, it's me next. I've got to do my bit. What if I forget what I've got to say? What if I get it wrong? What if nobody listens to me? What if they don't like me? Because, as Jo says, that's your response, it's not mine. I'm coming, I'm telling you the things that I think you need to know. I kind of trust myself that I'll respond to who's in the room and hopefully give you the information that you need. I'm not spending days worrying about it. It's taking some getting used to that I'm not, and every so often I go, well, I haven't panicked about that, and did I remember to put things in my bag? I'm sure it will have done. But all that starts with the morning. And even though I got up an hour and a half earlier than I usually do this morning, I still did exactly the same things. And then my mum came down and went, well, I'm doing Dan's school run this morning, so why have you done his packed lunch and his breakfast? I'm like, just because that's what I do on a morning. It's all done. Made some extra porridge for my mum, it's all good. I want you to spend a few minutes now just thinking about what your perfect morning routine would be. It might be that for you to feel like you're starting the day in the best possible way, you want to sit down and have the first cup of coffee, the first cup of tea, completely in silence, by yourself. It might be that you like to sit and journal first thing on the morning. It might be that you want to do some yoga or go for a run or whatever it is. Just think about what would make the perfect morning for you. I'm not talking about a morning that's doable. I'm talking about ideally. So it could be, you know, your perfect morning if you're on holiday. What's your perfect morning? Just take a couple of minutes just to think about what that would look like. So where would you be? What would you be doing? What would you be eating, drinking? As much detail as you can. Knitting me one. She keeps sending me pictures and going, I don't think I've quite got the ear shape right yet. I'm going to try. Okay. So what sorts of things have you got in your perfect morning?
My boys.
Oh.
Snuggles with them first thing. That means it.
Do you know that? I'll be honest, that's part of the reason why my self-care stuff comes at the end of the day, because the first thing my son does, even at nearly 10, is he runs into the bedroom and jumps into bed for a cuddle. I'm not sacrificing that. If I'm in the middle of meditating because he's come in early, that I'm not prepared to sacrifice that moment. He's not going to do it in a couple of years' time. And it's the most perfect start to the day. One of the things that I teach when I go into schools is the fact that we need our happiness soup. We need 3 ingredients for happiness soup. And every day to feel happy, we need physical touch. So cuddles, holding hands, stroking a dog, whatever it is, we need some sort of physical touch with another being. We need to laugh. And that's one of the things that we forget quite a lot as adults. That's why I always come away feeling so happy when I've been with Taz and Joe all day. And we need some sort of physical exercise, even if it's just running up and down the stairs a few times with loads of washing. As long as you've done some sort of physical exercise. And if we do all those 3 things every day, our body produces the chemicals that we need to be able to feel happy. If we've got one missing, we can't feel as happy as we should be.
Funny you mentioned that, because I've started to make it my mission to make someone laugh in the morning, because I think it'll set them up for the day, and then what then happens is bounces back on you.
Yeah.
And what you said about you know, being with someone, well, your boys, and finding someone you love, or you like their sort of company, that kind of thing, even if it's just a friend on the phone, that kind of thing. I think that's really important, because we've lived so much. I mean, I've lived in solitude for about 3 years, kind of thing, and it's really important that I've realised now that even if they're hundreds of miles away, it's having that connection. Maybe like I'll be speaking to that person whilst I'm working, that kind of thing, but you feel like you're in the same room sometimes.
And the technology's there, isn't it?
Why not use it?
You know, we can talk to people and see them while we're talking to them.
Yeah.
Which, you know, when I was a kid, it was something that you'd have seen on Tomorrow's World. It wasn't something that we ever thought would be possible. I am that old.
Same here.
But we don't always do it, do we? I was talking to the kids in a school the other day, and I was trying to explain to them that they've got to laugh, and they've got to laugh out loud. How many times do we see something really funny when we're scrolling through Facebook, or, you know, we're watching YouTube, and we do this weird internalised laugh where we kind of know that we're laughing, but our body hasn't changed. Like, our body doesn't understand that the same way. We've got to actually physically laugh.
That happened to me recently. I can't remember where I was, but I was with some... All I know is I was at the NEC. So we were in a cafe, like at the NEC, and I was looking through, my husband was in the queue for food, and I was looking through my phone. And something, which I can't even remember now, but I thought was hilarious. And it made me laugh out loud. It was so funny. I just could not laugh out loud. And the people around me looked at me like I was a lunatic. And I was like, you know.
Because people don't, though, do they?
Become contagious. That
it's like
fun
domino.
someone
Yeah.
else,
Isn't it?
It's sort of lighten someone else's day.
I can't
So-
remember.
And it's so important, and kids do it so easily. I'm really, really bad at remembering numbers and statistics.
305.
But-
I know, 'cause I read it the other day.
Brilliant. Kids laugh so many times a day, don't they? And as adults, we might laugh,
5 times a
like,
day,
yeah.
that's what it is.
And that's on average.
Yes.
So there's like some people I know that just laugh all the time, and some people that clearly never laugh, which is a little bit worrying. So, you know, feel free to laugh at me if that helps. I'm always happy to be of service. So it's important to look at those elements of your dream morning. And you might not be able to wake up and walk along the beach because you might live in Birmingham, and it's quite a long way to a beach from Birmingham. But you might be able to just take 5 minutes to have that first cup of coffee of the morning in peace, or to sit and meditate, or to go for a run. I quite often do things as soon as I get back from the school run, if I feel like I need to just do a little bit of reinforcing. And I'll tell you what, best thing we ever did was charity shop, £1 fined, ABBA, Let's Dance. If you need to get moving and laugh at the same time, get away. They're probably like 20p in the charity shops now because nobody seems to use them. Get yourself a Let's Dance disc, and I guarantee you will laugh and get exercise. One dance and I can hardly breathe because I'm so busy laughing and trying to keep up with the ridiculous dance moves. I'm like, oh. So, and not only that, everybody else in the room with you gets a laugh as well. Moving, laughing, spending time with people. There was some research done recently about the fact that if you speak to your mum on the phone, it has like stress relieving and pain relieving qualities.
Mine causes me stress.
It may depend on your mum.
Yeah, on your mum, yeah.
Top of my hit list.
Sorry, Kim. For most people. But it's a powerful thing. And it doesn't have to be your mum. It can be your best friend, it can be your sister, it can be, you know, grown-up children, whoever it is, that when you speak to them, you feel better. We've stopped picking up the phone. We've stopped talking to people. My sister and I now have a regular weekly date. She's in York, I'm in Stafford. And we WhatsApp video message each other at 2:30 every Thursday afternoon. And if we know that we've got something in the diary that means it's going to clash, then we rearrange it for another time. And it's the most amazing, sometimes hour, of the week, because we see each other and we talk to each other, and we might WhatsApp each other every day, and we always know what's going on with each other, but there's always other things that we've not talked about. And my little niece will kind of get in on the action, And it makes me feel so happy. And as soon as you feel happy, you instantly feel calmer, because it's really, really difficult to be stressed and happy at the same time. So what things can you put into your daily routine every day that are going to make you start the day feeling calm? And if you can't do it at the start of the day, can you put something in at the end of the day? So every night, Joe was talking about the 10 things that you're grateful for, that you're happy, that you've got in your life. I do that every night. I've now got a little pile of notebooks. Every night I write down at least 10 things that I'm grateful for. And there's been some really challenging days in that pile of notebooks. But I can always find 10 things. On my daughter's birthday a couple of years ago, my mother-in-law's best friend died completely unexpectedly. And we had to go over there at 11 o'clock at night to console my mother-in-law. And by the time I got back home and had to sit down and do my 10 things I was grateful for, I'd kind of forgotten that it was my daughter's birthday and was just overwhelmed with grief. But I was determined that I was going to sit there and I was going to write down 10 things that I was grateful for. And you can flip it. Taz talks about flipping your negatives. Yes, I was heartbroken that this lady had died, but for me to be heartbroken that she died, I had to be grateful that I'd known her. Because I couldn't be upset about somebody dying that hadn't made me feel better about myself, that hadn't made me feel happy, that hadn't made an impact on my life. So I was heartbroken that she died, but I was really glad that I'd had the chance to know her for 18 years. There's always a way to find the positives. So whether you do the things that help you to stay calm before you go to bed or on a morning, it's going to have an impact. The better night's sleep you get, the more your body can process all the stress chemicals that we all release through the day, so that you start the day feeling calmer anyway. And if you do all the relaxation things, all the techniques that we teach you today, before you go to bed, you will sleep better. So you will let those levels drop further. And if the levels drop further through the night, you can only start the day feeling more calm and more happy. So have a really good think about what you can do. And you're not going to manage it every day. You're really not. I've got a 14-year-old daughter. I don't get through every day without losing my temper. But I don't stand and scream like a banshee like I would have done at one point. I might feel really angry inside, and I might sometimes raise my voice. Ask Ian. But the fact is, I'm still really grateful that I've got her in my life. There's not a single day, no matter how mad she's driven me, that I'm not grateful that she's not a child that's done X, Y, and Z things that she could have done that day. She drives me crazy. She's a flipping angel at school. And I'm glad for that. There's always something that you can be grateful for. And you're not going to manage it every day, but the more you practice staying calm, the more you practice making your response to feeling anxious, not letting yourself get stressed about it, just immediately thinking, I've got that feeling, I'm worrying about such and such. Right, what do I need to do? I need to do some breathing. I need to go for a run. Whatever it is that you need to do to get rid of those chemicals and to get your heart rate down. The more natural that becomes, the calmer you're going to be. It works. I don't plan fire escape routes when I walk into every room. I genuinely had to look round when you asked where we'd got to go if the alarm went off for real. A while ago, I would have known that as soon as I stepped through the door. You can do it. Everybody can do it. Just keep practicing. I'm going to shut up now, because I think it's probably time for us to have some dinner, is it? I think it might be. Thank you.